This is Vice Chair Desmond. I am calling this meeting to order of the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District, Sacramento Area Sewer District, Sacramento County Sanitation District's Financing Authority. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Good morning. Member Bruins?
Aye.
Member Harris?
Here.
Member Howell?
Oh, just walked in.
Member Hume? Member Lolo'i? Member Singh Allen?
Here.
Member Sander?
Here.
Member Natoli?
Here.
Member Roscoe?
Here.
Member Desmond? Member Cerna? Member Cerna? Member Valenzuela?
Here.
Member Vang?
Here.
Member Villegas?
Here.
And Member Frost?
Here.
And you have a quorum. And Member Howell just came into chambers. Would you like to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance? Yes. Okay. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if we can move on to the first item.
Item number 1 is a verbal, acting as a Sacramento County Sanitation District's Financing Authority and Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District separate matters, verbal update on bond issuance.
Chair and board members, my name is
Don't think your mics are
I
on.
think your mic's on, Joe.
Good morning.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Good morning, Chair and board members. My name is Joe Mastretti. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Sanitation Districts. This morning, we want to give you an update on the outcome of our bond transaction, which we just closed this morning. Basically, we met all of the objectives that we had set out for this transaction. The primary objective was to get rid of the 2007B bonds because they would not make it through the LIBOR transition very smoothly. So that was a big risk that we had looming out there. So then that's gone now. Also, when we don't have the variable rate bonds, we don't need the swap. So we wanted to terminate the swap, which we did. And because we're issuing new bonds, we have a chance to do some restructuring, and that'll help us reduce some of the peak debt service in that time frame between 2024 and 2036, which is instrumental in helping us keep our rates and fees manageable. And then we wanted to achieve a little bit of net present value savings, which we did, even though it got real thin because the market was kind of uncooperative for us on this transaction. This slide shows some of the metrics that we achieved in this transaction. The first column you see there was the numbers that we presented to this board on February 10th. Those were based on the market estimate as of February 2nd. At that time, it looked like the rates would have been giving us an average true interest cost about 1.27%. We ended up at 1.46% because the market went away from us pretty aggressively about 5 or 6 days prior to our pricing date. But we were able to kind of bring it back together. We were saved a little bit by the swap termination payment. You'll see there that as interest rates go up, the swap termination payment goes down. So that helped us quite a bit to absorb some of that higher cost. You also see that the average life is a little bit shorter. What we did was we took some of the longer maturities and moved them forward so they could sell on the cheaper part of the yield curve, and that helped us a lot as well. We were still able to maintain the call flexibility on the bonds, although one of the maturities in 2031 is a make-whole call. But we didn't have to give up very much flexibility there, and you can see we didn't have to contribute more cash, but there's a little bit more par value on the bonds because of the higher interest rate. But we were still happy to achieve a little bit of net present value savings, and it's probably good to note that the real benefit is the cash value savings that we achieve over the remaining 15 years of these bonds, probably in the neighborhood of $120 million, even though $100 million of that is our cash contribution. Now it still helps us a lot down the road, particularly when we look at the next restructuring transaction. And this chart just shows the annual debt service profile for Regional San after we do this transaction. The dotted line was before the transaction, and if you recall, back in the summer of 2020, we did a transaction to get rid of our other variable rate debt and to refund one of our other fixed rate debts at that time, and that reduced the annual debt service maximum from $150 million down to that $140 million level, and then this transaction brings it down to about $128 million a year. And then we have one more restructuring transaction to do for the 2014A bonds, and we set ourselves up pretty well for that. As you can see, the tall blue lines at the end there in 2042 through 2045, those are mostly the 2014A bonds. And you see the valleys in front of that, the one in 2041 and then the one we just created in 2036. Those are places where we can move some of those longer maturities forward on the 2014As, and we should be able to save a lot of money on that transaction. If we did it today, we'd save more than $50 million. And we think, waiting to the call date, we could probably save even more. So we have one good transaction left. It'll be a pretty simple, straightforward fixed rate debt swap for another fixed rate debt at a lower rate. So we have that to look forward to, and I think we're in a good shape to get that total maximum annual debt service line down to around 120 in a couple of years. And that should go a long way to keeping our rates and fees at their current level. I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments you have on the transaction.
Any questions out there?
I just want to note that, as usual, our debt is very highly sought after. When we are in the market, I think it was subscription is 3.5 to 1.
Yeah,
some probably even as
some of them up to 6.
6 to 1. So it's 3.5 times more than what we have offered to sell is what people are asking to buy, which is a good sign. And I think Joe was a bit modest in saying that the timing was everything. Just I think an hour after we finished our transaction, really rates went sideways, or actually wrong way. And I looked at some of the 10-year maturities that we have. I think we were able to sell at about 1.1%, whereas the 10-year Treasury was yielding at 1.6 a day after. If we are off by a day, we would have been clobbered with the melee. And luckily, and even the same day, the time was quite worked out in our favor, even though, one of the things that our back and forth Joe and I have when we look at these things, there was, from the time you approved to the time that we actually went to the market, at one point our net present value savings went up to $6 million. But not all our elements are ready so that we can go to the market. You have to have so many things in place. So Joe's biting his nails, wondering if the market's going to turn, because the days prior it was just not doing well. I mean, how it was going to be on Wednesday, and do we go or no go? So that's the kind of decision that he was making, and happily that we got present value savings. More importantly, about 120 million. I mean, off the debt service payments, which is a big thing, is how we keep our rates low. And try to move from our reserves and pay down. So that's really what has helped us.
Right, and the advantage of paying off some of your debt early is you don't get penalized on your rate coverage in the year that you pay it this year, but you do get the benefit of that in the future years. So that works out really well for the debt coverage ratio, which is important.
Yeah.
Great work by all of the staff.
Oh, it's a tough go, this one. This one was really on the knife's edge when we were ready to pull, and I think it's came on the right side. Happy to report.
Great work.
Thank you.
Okay, if we can move on to the next item.
I'm sorry, Chairperson Howell. I completely forgot to read the clerk's statement, so if you would be obliged.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I wasn't sure what I had missed coming in a couple of seconds late.
This meeting of the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation and Sacramento Area Sewer Districts is being recorded and will be broadcast on Sunday, March 14th at 6 p.m. on Metro Cable 14, the Local Government Affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned for our hearing impaired viewers. In accordance with the Government Code 54952.3, compensation for meeting of these legislative bodies is required to be verbally disclosed. The amount of $100 will be paid for each member participating today as a member of the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District, and the amount of $100 will be paid for each board member participating today as a member of the Sacramento Area Sewer District. Compensation for Sacramento County supervisors and City of Sacramento council members is paid to the county and city respectively to partially offset the costs of those governments. Compensation for other board members is delivered to the individuals. In compliance with directives of the county, state, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this meeting is live streamed and closed to in-person public participation. Temporary procedures are subject to change pursuant to guidelines related to social distancing and minimizing person-to-person contact. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter. When the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be transferred from the queue into the meeting to make a verbal comment. Written comments are always accepted. Send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net. Your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the next item.
Chair Hal, Jeff Harris here.
Yes.
I didn't manage to get unmuted on that last item, but Prabhakar and Joe, I wanted to say that your financial wizardry never fails to impress. In the market, you have to be ready and make go, no-go decisions at the right time. And, in my 6 years on this board, you guys have got it right virtually every time. I'm really impressed, and I just want to say that I totally appreciate your financial stewardship of this organization.
Thank you, and appreciate your comment. What I was not impressed and was fuming with Joe was we spent $1 million to do this transaction. That really gored my ox, and I was even joking before this meeting, it gored my ox twice on Sunday. To have to spend $1 million on this transaction which we did middle of last year one, and you actually updated those official statements, and roughly about $300,000 had to be spent on rating updates, which I think we spent maybe an hour each, and then they spent a little bit of time updating, and for that we paid $300,000. I mean, obviously we're in the wrong business, but you know, that's a business we have to play by.
I think I see a post-retirement job opportunity for both of you.
Well, you have nerves of steel, and I feel sorry for your ox.
Yeah, we were not happy. I mean, Joe was trying to calm me down and said, you know, we actually had a better deal. And you got to think about how it would have been if we didn't get the better deal.
All those things get built into the...
You're on now.
Okay. All those costs get built into that net present value savings. So we managed to achieve those savings even though we did have to incur all those costs.
That's right.
Roger Neela would be proud right now. Accounting can be fun. Okay, now on to the next item.
Acting as your Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District consent matters, items 2 and 3.
Anybody have any questions or want to pull anything? Do we have a motion?
I'll move consent.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
I have a motion from Director Harris and a second from Director Desmond.
Yes.
Member Bruins? Member Harris?
Aye.
Howell?
Aye.
Hume? Kennedy? Lolo'i? Singh Allen?
Aye.
Sander?
Aye.
Natoli?
Aye.
Orozco?
Aye.
Desmond?
Aye.
Cerna?
Aye.
Valenzuela?
Yes.
Bang?
Yes.
Villegas?
Aye.
Frost?
Aye.
And the motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. That moves us on to item 4.
Item 4, and let me check if we have any public comments. We do not have any verbal public comments or written public comments.
Okay, thank you. That moves us to item 5.
Item number 5 is the acting as the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District and Sacramento Area Sewer District consent matters. Approve the reimbursement of certain capital expenditures from proceeds of indebtedness for the Joint Facilities District number 2018-03, Greenbrier.
Any questions? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved, Chair Howell. Jeff Harris.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Bobby Singh Allen.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
I have a motion from Member Harris and a second from Member Bobby Singh Allen. Member Bruins? Harris?
Aye.
Howell?
Yes.
Hume? Kennedy? Lolo'i? Singh Allen?
Yes.
Sander?
Aye.
Natoli?
Aye.
Orozco?
Aye.
Desmond?
Aye.
Cerna?
Aye.
Valenzuela?
Yes.
Vang?
Yes.
Villegas?
Yes.
And Frost.
Aye.
Hi, this is Bruins. I didn't realize I was muted. Aye.
Thank you. And how about for the consent items as well, Member Bruins?
Yes, aye. I thought I was online. I wasn't. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, I approve.
Thank you.
We were missing you. I'm glad you're back.
I was here all along.
Okay, that moves us on to item number 6.
And you did not have any public comments on that item as well. Item number 6, acting as the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District and Sacramento Area Sewer District separate matters, workshop on district's cash investment.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'll start and part way, if we have questions, Joe will come up and join me in the discussion. This is just an earlier discussion on this subject, and the years prior we have been alluding to this, and I think it's come today. Actually, this year probably will be a year. Ever since the districts have been formed, the district's cash has been invested in the county treasury pool, involuntarily, mandatorily. So districts had no say in how that investments were to be made. So the districts looked at it. Certainly the county pool it's a safe, and all of these public investments are done according to the statutes of California. I mean, it's not like you can go out and buy junk bonds and things like that. But how you invest in terms of the maturity durations can play a role in the returns. So when we looked at the county treasury pool versus how our cash needs are versus our predictability in terms of our revenues, our expenditures, we typically look long term. So we have a sense of what our cash needs are, and so we can project out. We can be potentially on the long part of the yield curve rather than really on the short part of the yield curves, as Joe was mentioning. We can mix it that way. But on the other hand, the treasury pool has a mix of participants. Their needs may be different. They're, as a matter of fact, some of them quite different than our needs are. So we have tried to gain control of our reserve cash for some time. I think prior district engineers, I think it started in the mid-90s. We tried to inquire, can we invest our own or have a separate investment portfolio within the county treasury pool, or invest outside, and for both of which the council opined that there's no provisions for doing that. Districts are mandatorily have to have their investments invested in the treasury pool with absolutely no control over them. And I think, again, in mid-2000, somewhere in 2005, 2006, inquiries were made to see if there's any flexibility, and again, the same thing. Last year, we did it again. Before we did, we also looked at the other parts of California, how the sanitation districts are doing. What we found is really, we know of no sanitation district that's been mandated to invest in the treasury pool. Now, those sanitation districts by themselves made decisions to invest in the treasury pools they're in, but they're never been mandated to do so the same way that we have been mandated. So we've inquired, and the council looked at it. I think one of the reasons why the prior opinions came out that way is those opinions were more narrowly focused on certain parts of the statutes versus taking into consideration all the different statutes that came along later. So the council changed the opinion, and now the opinion indicates that the districts can invest, have control over its investment. So what we plan to do is we plan to bring in a series of actions in front of your board to make that happen over the next months. So first, before I outline what those actions are, you might ask, why would you want to do that? One of the things is a better return of our investments. We looked last year, for example, we are combined, the two districts together, we're probably the second largest sanitation district in California. The third largest is Orange County Sand District. It's got about $600 million reserves, slightly less than $600 million. And our reserves are somewhere in that ballpark together. When we looked at how they have earned, what their returns were compared to the pool returns, we looked the prior 5 years, we made about $5 million less than what Orange County Sand District did in terms of their investments. Orange County Sand Districts, their investment needs and their reserve profiles and the cash needs are very similar to our needs are, the way that our districts operate. Again, the last 5 years, where the interest rates were not great. I mean, the years prior where the interest rates were substantially better. So the reason why I think we need to take control and have more investing to our goals is better returns. Why do we need better returns? I think some of the members that have been on this board for a longer time know that interest revenue make up for a large part of our non-rate, non-fee revenue. And there are very important uses for the non-rate, non-fee revenue that your board has directed to do. For example, we do rate rebate for the low-income folks. So we spend roughly about $2.5 million a year to provide rebates to low-income folks. And the interest revenue provides that basis for that. Like that, you also remember some of the members that have been on the board prior, the Confluence program, which there are environmental stewardship activities, parkway restorations and the water quality restorations that we embark on. The funding for those kinds of programs come from the non-fee revenue, and interest revenue is a lion's share for that. Especially, the other types of revenues come into that is like leases, land leases, and also we sell commodities, for example, natural gas to SMUD for power. But we are going to have our own power plant in about 3 to 4 years. That revenue will not be there, although we'll have substantial power cost savings from our power plant. So it's important that we need to take these steps so that we can better invest and have better returns. So that's what we plan to do. So the things that need to happen is the districts have never appointed a treasurer. So the county treasurer by default acts as our treasurer. Believe it or not, the districts, having been in existence for 50 years, districts don't even have a bank account. So the monies are handled through the county. So we have retained a consultant who happens to be the advisor for Orange County Sand District. We did a recruitment. Essentially, we did advertised, and we had proposals come in and was selected. So we're developing investment policies, which our board will need to approve, and we're also developing strategic goals for our investment, and also a transition plan, because we can't overnight pull the funds out of county treasury pool. There are legal obligations in a way that you have to manage those withdrawals. So we need to make sure that we meet that. One of the other reasons why we also take this action now, or proposing, EcoWater project. We have incurred a fair bit of debt with EcoWater project. I think by the time we're done with it, it's probably $1.2-ish billion. We already got about $900 million or so. What happens is, as we finish the projects, the large chunks of these projects, the debt service starts. One of the requirements of the debt service is when it's all done, we have to maintain 1 year's worth of debt service for this the loan payment in reserves until the entire loan is paid up, meaning that the next 30 years we'll have to have about close to $55-ish million to be set aside, can't be touched. So when you have that long restricted reserve, you really don't want to be putting that money in a short-term return type vehicles. So we also want to be in a position because we closed one of the projects with the loan. So right now our debt service is roughly about $20 million. But pretty soon it's going to balloon to about 60 in the next 2 years. We want to make sure that we're in a position to have those funds under our control and that we invest them more in the longer term needs that they need to be held for. So that's also the reason why I think the things are coming in front of you. So over the next months, hopefully before I retire, I think we'll get a majority of these actions brought to your board, and then slowly transition from one to the other side over a number of years, so that that gradually comes in. Also, we looked at it for example, last year the county treasury pool has about $4 billion, I think, when we looked at it. So our share represents about 15% of the treasury pool at the time, but it fluctuates in terms of member withdrawals and so forth. So that's in a nutshell what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do and what actions we're going to bring to your board to make the decisions on. And I just wanted to update you. And I want to let you know that we have discussed this with the county treasurer, Ben Lamera, and I have provided this letter to him and the county executive before this meeting, actually probably 2-3 weeks ago. I think maybe about 2 weeks ago. And we'll be consulting with Ben along the way as we bring those items here. Again, like I said, I think we need to do it in an orderly fashion over a period of time so that it's done properly. So that's the discussion I wanted to bring to your board. If you have any questions, maybe Krista has looked at the legal memo. I have it in case, and I'm going to hand over to her if she can look at it if you have any questions, as well as Joe. Joe is managing the consultant. We're getting ready to bring certain actions here. So any of us, if you have questions, we can answer.
By comparison, what is the district's, and maybe the best way to ask this question is to ask the difference in the district's bond rating versus the county's.
I don't think we can answer that way, but go ahead, Joe, if you have any. I don't think it's a county bond rating necessarily works in this case. It's the treasury pool. The
reason I ask the question is because I know from my regional experience that the district is in probably better financial shape than anybody else in the region. And I would have to think that probably includes the county as well. So if we have made historically better decisions than other agencies, that in and of itself, as long as it's allowed by statute, for the districts to pull their money out of that treasury pool, then it makes sense to me.
I don't think we should look quite that way. This is the way I would suggest we look at it. Treasury pool has so many participants. There's a lot of school districts, small park districts, and county itself, and for example, water agency and the likes. There's a conglomeration of the members. Together, they have a kind of a weighted revenue needs, how the money needs to be held available or be able to withdraw. I don't think the credit rating necessarily of either the county or the district at play here. It's more of how does that money need to be managed for the large number of the contributors, or the participants in the pool. In our view is that's different than what our needs are and the way that should be managed our money, and hence to control. I don't think the credit rating really needs to enter into the discussion, at least the way I see it. And so anyway, that's my thought for ponder.
Do you have anything to add to that?
The credit ratings are related to debt management, not necessarily investment management.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, just briefly, to clarify what Prabhakar had said about council opinion, to make it clear that the council that issued the opinion was not me, not district council. It was the county council assigned to Department of Finance that had issued those opinions over the year. So I just wasn't sure that was clear from Prabhakar's presentation.
Thank you. I should have been clear on that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Couple quick. Thank you, Prabhakar. I mean, very persuasive, and I get that the flexibility. Your needs aren't the needs of aren't the same as the county pool. So my question is, what's the flip side to this? Is there a risk? Is there a downside to doing this? Because I imagine the pooled accounts, there's some cost savings maybe associated with that, some fee savings, some influence on those fees and costs. So could you maybe explain that a little bit, Joe, and how you see that shaking out? Yeah,
we've been kind of told by the consultant that we could actually lower our cost to manage it a little bit. I don't know what goes into their cost structure. But it wouldn't really add a whole lot of burden to us. And it might take quite a few years before we get to that point, because we don't, like Prabhakar said, we don't have a bank account now, so we do not process checks in or out, and that will probably need to continue with the county pool for a while.
Okay.
And that's the major cost of maintaining a treasury.
Right.
Investment management isn't that complex because you don't transact, very regularly.
And then the other question I had, Prabhakar, is you mentioned a comparison in the rate of return between our district and Orange County. What about between Orange County, the district, and their pooled county investments? Any comparison between those, just to illustrate that, hey, these districts are exceeding the rates of return?
And just to add to Rich's question, I was going to ask whether or not OC San was ever in the Orange County pool.
Interestingly, Orange County San stopped investing through the county about 20 years ago because Orange County actually went bankrupt, unlike most other counties are. So that's when they have taken really full control. I was trying to figure out why is it we're the only ones that we are in this situation versus the rest of them. And obviously you can get hold of a few of them. Not everybody can remember what the history is and things like that. To answer your question, we have not looked at the comparison between their performance and the Orange County pool performance itself. But I think what's an apt comparison between Orange County is, because most of these San districts, they use advisory services to invest and look at their policies. It is not a guarantee that every year that you're going to be better always, but in the long run, you have to look at in the long run how you're performing. And our view, if it is in the long run, I think the district will perform if they manage their money themselves separately from the pool. For the reason I explained, that is, the needs are different for the pool than ours. And sometimes yield curves really get crazy. Sometimes the long end is cheaper than the short end. And that can happen. The curve inversions happen. So depending on when you invest and what your time frame is for each of your pieces of your investment, you could be doing well just by investing on the short end, or you could not be doing well investing on the short end. So that's
like if
why
you time your bond swap appropriately, right? I mean, it has a big influence on things. So, no, I appreciate that. I understand.
So that's why
I'm just wondering if there's a comparison over
right.
maybe several years or something that might help inform some of these decisions. But
I think historically, you look at very long-term historical numbers. If you have a longer weighted average maturity, you're going to earn a higher rate.
That's right.
The county pool, because of the liquidity requirements for all the different participants, is going to have a short weighted average maturity compared to what districts like Orange County San and our districts would need. So I think that's the advantage, is we could handle a much longer weighted average maturity of our pool versus the county pool.
Okay, thank you.
And also, as I was saying, that there are statutory requirements in how you withdraw from the pools themselves. So you have to be compliant with that. So it's got to be gradual over a period of time. Certain components, portions may come out sooner, and other portions of the district reserves may come out later. And I can tell you, really, not much of it will happen before Joe and I leave. I mean, we're laying the sort of groundwork, setting the path so that to come. I mean, my sense is probably the next 2-3 years time frame is when things transition more towards it.
Okay, do we have any other questions from any other board members?
Yes, Chair, if it's okay.
Villegas. Just a quick comment, if I could, Villegas.
Yes.
Oh, just real quickly, thank you, Prabhakar, for reminding us the importance of having investments that align with our long-term sustainable strategic direction. And the reason I want to underscore the importance of this is that nearly 10 years ago during the recession, we had very, very difficult discussions regarding where we were going to have to make some difficult cuts. And one of the things that we spent an extensive amount of time on, and many of the newer members weren't there for this discussion, was during the downturn, we made a conscious decision to take the non-rate fee revenues and make sure that folks who could not even afford to make their utility payments monthly, that we continue to sort of preserve that pool of money to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to survive the downturn. And that was a very conscious decision that we made, but we had to align our sort of fiscal policies. Thank goodness that our policies were aligned to allow us to continue to do that. And that was a difficult decision. We had days and days on end of discussions about where those cuts were going to come, but ultimately we landed. And that's just one sliver of an example of kind of aligning our long-term fiscal responsibility with our, board policy when the rubber meets the road when times are difficult. So I just wanted to underscore that because that's incredibly important. Thank you.
And just to add to that, I think, those were the days when we, all of the other programs that we support, the educational opportunities that lead to, school-age children being more responsible adults because they understand how the process works. The SPLASH program and all of the other things that we have funded, the nature preserves and all of that, although we did have to decrease our funding, we were able to continue to provide some funding.
Yes.
As we do today because we have that money available.
Yeah, we definitely are in a much better position than we were before. We have set aside reserves now for both districts for the Confluence program. I mean, for example, this year or the next year, we don't expect to make a lot of interest revenue. So we have a bit of a rainy fund available, put aside when we made excess non-rate, non-fee revenue, we set aside in the reserves. So all of these are in the effort of making it better for us in the future.
Well, it's not just the district, it's better for the universe, basically, into the future because of some of these programs that we're able to fund with that money. Any other requests
Chair,
to speak?
this is Member Valenzuela.
Go ahead.
I think along those same lines of talking about sustainability and aligning with our long-term goals, I'd love for, any divestment moves we could make in fossil fuel funded investments to be a part of the consideration. We know that there's growing concern in some financial sectors, and we're seeing a lot of banks move investments away from those types of projects due to volatility and concerns that they're not bringing in as much returns as maybe non-fossil fuel energy projects. So just want to flag that for staff's consideration. I don't know if the county has a policy about that. I've been working on one with the city treasurer to bring back to council for consideration, but something else worth bringing in at this stage, I think, since it sounds like we're in the early consideration movements.
Joe, you have any thoughts on that?
We can incorporate anything that you like in the investment policy. That's the kind of thing that we can address in that policy document, which we've already got a draft of and we're working on. But we can put any kind of limitations in there that the board wants.
So I think the better thing is to bring that policy in front of the board and provide board have a discussion and then provide guidance.
I think that's the time to have that conversation.
Yes,
when the policy
certainly
comes to the board.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair and staff.
Any other questions? Comments?
I don't see anyone with their hand raised online.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. No action needed. I just wanted to update you. That's just a first part of the discussion.
Okay. Thank you. I think that takes us to item 7.
Item number 7 is acting as your Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District and Sacramento Area Sewer District, District Separate Matters, Miscellaneous Director, and District Engineer Matters.
I have no other announcements other than to say that we will have a second meeting this month on March 24th. Normally, we only have one meeting a month, but I think this month is going to be an exception. That's all I have.
Thank you. Moving on to the Sacramento Area Sewer District, District Consent Matters, items 8 through 10.
Madam Chair, this is Rick Nicole. Moving on, I wanted to note on item 8
that on that reimbursement agreement, I think it should be Director Sanders, I think it's City of Rancho.
I'm sorry, Don, can you repeat that? You were hard to hear.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The note on the agenda shows that when, behind, Blues area here, and it has Dean Natoli, and it has obviously Allen, but I don't believe it's not in Elk Grove, it's in Rancho Cordova, so it should be Director Sanders, just on the printed agenda.
Oh, good point. You are correct.
Thank you, Don.
Okay.
It's hard being the new guy sometimes.
I move the items, Madam Chair.
No, David, you have to draw us a map of exactly where that pump station is now.
Okay.
Actually, there's going to be a presentation. You can ask the gentleman that's coming to make the presentation. He'll show you where that pump station is.
No, it's a quiz. Just that only applies to David.
Not included.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments about the consent items? We have a motion?
Yes, I move it.
I'll second.
This is Bruins, I second it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Can we call the roll, please?
Member Bruins?
Aye.
Member Hume? Singh Allen?
Aye.
Member Howell?
Yes.
Kennedy? Natoli?
Aye.
Desmond?
Aye.
Cerna?
Aye.
Vang?
Yes.
Sander?
Aye.
And Frost. And the motion passes.
Okay. Thank you all. And that moves us on to item 11.
Item number 11, acting as your Sacramento Area Sewer District, the Sacramento Area Sewer District System Capacity Plan 2020 update.
As Jason is coming up to make his presentation, I wanted to tell you that in your package, because a lot of the attachments are 11 by 17 sheets, they were put in electronic format. There's also a couple of hard copies here in the chambers. In case if anybody has questions, Jason is going to try to put those hard copies on the camera so you can see. But if anybody in the chamber need a copy, that we can distribute. So I just wanted to mention. With that,
Great.
Jason?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Jason Lofton. I'm a senior civil engineer.
You'll have to speak into the microphone.
I'm a senior civil engineer in business planning at SASD. And today I'm presenting the System Capacity Plan 2020 update. During the presentation, I'll give you some background on SASD and on some background on the System Capacity Plan. Then I'll present the results of the 2020 System Capacity Plan, and then I'll explain how the plan is used going forward. The Sacramento Area Sewer District provides sewer service to the unincorporated portions of the Sacramento County, to portions of the cities of Sacramento and Folsom, to the cities of Citrus Heights, Elk Grove, and Rancho Cordova. We also serve the Delta communities of Freeport, Cortland, and Walnut Grove. Our service area covers about 278 square miles, and we serve about 1.2 million people. The map on the right, which I will zoom in next so you can see it closer, but the map on the right shows the 2020 System Capacity Plan study area. The brown outline here is the urban services boundary. The hatched area is our existing service area, and the yellow coloring shows the extents of our System Capacity Plan study area. The System Capacity Plan is a high-level planning study. It's part of our sewer system management plan. It identifies existing and future sewer capacity needs. It informs our long-term financial plan, and the previous System Capacity Plan was finished in 2010 and approved by your board in 2012. There are two service areas, NSASD service areas. The first is the relief area, shown here in yellow. In the relief area, the System Capacity Plan assessed system performance It identified potential capacity deficiencies, and it developed preliminary solutions to those capacity deficiencies. The other area is the expansion area, shown here in green. And in the expansion area, the system capacity plan updated sewer plans to serve future developments. Now, because our plan contemplated future developments, we used the land use plans from our local jurisdictions, including the County of Sacramento, the City of Sacramento, Rancho Cordova, Citrus Heights, and Elk Grove. This slide shows the results for the relief area. On the left, we show the 2020 results, and then on the right, we show the 2010 results for comparison. Under existing conditions, the system capacity plan identified 19 potential relief projects. Under build-out conditions, we identified 7 more potential relief projects for a total of 26. And our preliminary cost estimate for those is about $154 million. Compared to 2010, we'd identified 24 potential relief projects for a total cost of about $90 million. The increase in cost from 2010 to 2020 can be attributed to inflation and an increase in the number of projects, as well as increasing the scope of some of the other projects. This slide shows the results of the expansion area. And again, on the left, we show the 2020 results compared to the 2010 results on the right. The system capacity plan identified 23 sewer sheds with future trunks at build-out condition for about the cost of about $1.14 billion. Compared to 2010, we'd identified 21 trunk systems with a preliminary total cost of about $821 million. The increase in cost here can be attributed to inflation and an increase in the number of sewer sheds in the build-out area, or expansion area, sorry. Depending on where these projects are, they are funded differently. In the relief area, those projects are funded by SASD and our ratepayers. In the expansion area, the project upfront costs are funded by developers, and then SASD collects the impact fees for the trunk portion and reimburses the developers. We also did an environmental review for this document, and the Sacramento County Office of Planning and Environmental Review determined that our capacity plan was exempt from CEQA. And they said the project is a high-level planning study for future sewer capacity in which the district has not approved, adopted, or funded the improvements identified in the study. This slide shows how the plan will be used going forward. On the top is the relief projects. First, the system capacity plan identified potentially capacity deficient systems. The next step is a project-specific investigation where we validate the need for the capacity relief. And then finally, we do a project development plan where we implement the approved projects. For the expansion area, our system capacity plan serves as a reference for SASD development services. And those projects are developer-driven and further evaluated through detailed sewer studies at that time. The system capacity plan was produced entirely in-house. Our SASD engineering team consisted of project management, hydraulic modeling, cost estimating, relief and expansion project development. And the SASD engineering team was advised by the Technical Advisory Committee that was made up of SASD managers and regional SAN representatives. Today, we are requesting that you certify our notice of exemption and approve the System Capacity Plan 2020 update. Thank you, and are there any questions?
Any questions of any of the board members? It's pretty straightforward. I have no questions. Short, sweet, and concise. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I know the information is very voluminous and Jason did a good job covering it. And I thank staff for providing a hard copy. But it's very, to kind of summarize it in a few minutes, I think doesn't necessarily do justice to the level of detail and understanding about, being able to provide sanitary sewer service to, areas that both already developed and certainly new areas that are within, the jurisdictional boundaries of all of our member agencies and member organizations. So I just wanted to compliment our staff. There's a lot of work on, I don't know how many thousands of hours go into preparing that, keeping that updated and so forth, but I think it certainly helps us track our work, and it helps cities and the counties to, know in their planning processes that, the services of sort of this important utility will be available that's being planned for, and that upgrades and additions will be, done according to certainly the district's plan, but also working with our member jurisdictions. So I just wanted to thank Prabhakar and certainly Jason and Christoph and all the folks that are involved at various levels, because it's a very important, backbone piece to what we do, keeping our community safe, but also allowing to grow in a way that meets the utility demands of this district and certainly other utility providers. So I just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you for the comments, Director Natoli, but I cannot take any credit, and I really want to acknowledge Zuyen and Jason here, and we have a number of people that are logged in, ready to support in any way the discussion goes. Those are the ones that made this happen. And actually, we do an excellent job doing it in-house. This is done largely from Rosemary's side of the organization, but it also has to coordinate with the regional SAM side. There's always a question on, do we do the trunks or do we do interceptors? Those are the new members. Trunks are a smaller size pipes, but the interceptors carry a lot of flow, meaning the regional SAN has to manage them. But you can't have them at the first drop because you can't operate those with a small flow because these are large pipes and they present a lot of problems. So there's a lot of discussion goes behind this document, back and forth, the planning and certain decision makings. Sometimes, the planning comes well, but there are times when we can't predict where the growth happens. So we don't always get things right. And we try to do as best as we can, but we can't also, if you understand, we have to rely on the land management agencies. We are not a land management agency. So if the land management happens in an orderly fashion, it makes our lives a little bit easier to predict where the services are needed, and then we can plan for those. But if the land management isn't necessarily orderly, sometimes they hopscotch and do things, that makes it very difficult, and can be sometimes costly. So, but that's the work that these folks behind me are the ones that work on, and they have excellent modeling group that does a lot of modeling to figure out what the flows are going to be. So I just want to thank them. I'm really a face for it for a short period of time, but it's largely their work.
Thank you.
Bottom up, my thanks to all the cast that you alluded to, certainly to Rosemary and to Jason and all the folks. They were listed in the report, so again, I meant to be inclusive. So thanks for pointing that out, Prabhakar.
And Prabhakar, thank you for that. On behalf of the new member caucus of the district board, I appreciate you taking the time to explain some of these things, because that's very, very helpful to me. So I appreciate that.
Which just reminded me of something else, and this goes back to what we were talking about in the search for a new district engineer discussion. For those that were involved in that call, the fact that Prabhakar felt the need to explain the difference between a trunk sewer and an interceptor is in fact important. And I would also recommend that the new people caucus, that maybe they get a little bit of, even if it's a half an hour of an explanation about how the system operates. I think as horrible as that may sound, and as wonderful as it sounds coming from this engineer, I think it really is important for those newer members to understand just the basics about how the system itself operates and the plant as well.
Yeah, so on that front, my secretary, Sunny, is reaching out to your staff. There's 6 new members, We're going to be scheduling a 1-hour briefing with the executive team where we go over the highlights of how the collection systems are and the interceptor systems are and what the differences are. And also you get to meet us at least via Zoom, because in this new world that we really can't meet in person. So the work is underway. But I also will schedule tours, and just before the meeting, Director Desmond and I talked, and one-on-one, and like I said, we're planning on hosting a meeting probably somewhere at the plant if things work out on a COVID front. So all of those venues provide opportunities for education for newer members.
Okay, good. So if we have no other questions, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the item.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Member
Second,
Bruins?
Natoli.
Oh.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Member Bruins? And your phone is muted, Member Bruins. Member Hume? Member Howell?
Yes.
Kennedy? Natoli?
Aye.
Desmond?
Aye.
Cerna?
Aye.
Bang?
Yes.
Sander?
Aye.
Frost?
Aye. And Alma, did you hear me on the last one? Because I wasn't sure if I got unmuted correctly.
I will check. And Member Singh Allen?
Aye. I was an aye on both.
Thank you. I did have you voting aye on both, and recorded a aye vote for Member Singh Allen. Member Bruins, I see you still on the line, but I do not. But your phone is muted, and the motion carries with the members who we were able
Okay,
to.
do we need Jeannie for a quorum?
No.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, Member Singh Allen is the alternate for the SASD,
Yes.
since Director Hume is not
Yes.
Okay.
today. Okay.
Okay, and our next items, 12 and 13, are simply receive and file. So do we have any comments?
No discussions are needed unless you have questions. There are no actions are needed for those receive and file items.
Right. So do we have any other comments from any of the board members that are on the call?
I just wanted to ask, did the Zoom work? This is the first time we're trying Zoom. I just wanted to ask the members that are remotely plugged in, I'm assuming if it doesn't work, please say it, because you don't have to say if it works. So there's many
It's
of you on the call.
Honestly, because we can see better than me having multiple screens open, I can see the slides you're sharing, and it just makes it a little bit more seamless.
I totally agree.
Okay, and I have no comment because we're sitting in the actual room. And we can't see anything except what's going on here.
Definitely an improvement.
Okay, well, it sounds like everybody's happy, or happier than they were at the last meeting. So the date of our next meeting?
Is March 24th.
Okay, March 24th.
2 weeks from today.
All right, and
Thank you.
Thank you all. With that, we are adjourned.